What's up guys, Manny from Motomillion, and it's time to clean up our handlebars. So guys, first thing first, I'm going to remove the front end off the bike because it's going to give us a lot more access for the handlebar area, but also, as we mentioned in the previous video, we're starting our full carbon conversion, full carbon except the tank. So this panel is going to be replaced, and also the headlight stay, which is this piece here, or the front subframe of the bike, is going carbon as well. And we got two hidden bolts, one on each side to get this front headlight fairing off. So the front is loose. This is one bolt. So I could tell you, just holding this piece right here, there's going to be weight savings, not just because of the carbon, but we're also going to switch our windscreen. I'm a fan of the clear screens. We're going to run our WRS windscreen, but if you were here, you could tell how much this weighs. Maybe we'll get a weight reading after, but until then, I'm just going to put this somewhere safe. Looks kind of cool too. And now we have access to everything on the front end of our SP2. And you see why I kind of did that, because I have so much room to work on this, especially since we're changing our clutch and brake masters. We're going to get a little dirty, I guess, because the brake fluid might leak, but we're trying to make sure it's not going to leak anywhere. 10.5 mils on each side. This is more just a flat out 10, but yeah, there you go, 10.3. That way when we install our clip-ons, we know all the heights are correct. And before I go any further, let me show you these beauties. These clip-ons by IMA. It's not just the looks that we're going for, but if you notice right here, we have this standard length clip-on, but we opted for the optional longer length clip-on. If you order them in the longer lengths, they only come with the longer length, guys. I only have them here for the purpose of showing you the length difference. And if you're an avid viewer, I have mentioned it before, and also on the R1 build that we did, the bars are wider. Why is a wider bar better? Because it helps you counter steer a lot easier with the bike, and also it suits the riding position that at least I like more, and that's the whole point of adjustable clip-ons. When we get to it, you guys will see how much adjustment these things have and how beautiful they are. But the whole purpose is to get the ergonomics of the bike to suit the rider. But also, these things look absolutely like $1,000,000. That's our upper triple that's off. Usually we change these on all the bikes that we build, but in this one, since it has a special build number on it, we'd like to keep it. It's number 306. I wish it was number 305 because we are in Miami and that's the area code. But for now, let's put this aside. Before I go any further, I want to show you guys this piece. We showed you guys this piece in the last video. It is the upper steering head cover. And this sits in here. It should sit in here. I guess we got to take this upper nut off, and it goes under the upper nut, and it'll clean up the whole look of this bike. Safe to say it goes in just like this. Before I head and finally mount everything, as you can see, there's a lot of spillover grease that was provided by the factory of Ducati for us. I'm going to clean this up, and then we'll put this back on there, and then we'll get onto the clip-ons. It will add a little bit of a thickness to our steering stem, which is not an issue. And we're going to torque this down. Guys, I installed the steering stem nut. Everything is on and torqued as you saw. The only thing is, I have a little bit of OCD. These dots that are on here, it's very hard to align it, so we try to align it to the best possible, and at least our steering stem nut is completely straight when it's torqued down. This is just a tiny little bit off, I think, to the right side, but there's no way to spin this when you actually torque this down. But I think it looks good. Looks a lot better than what it was. Now let's start off with our handlebars. Here's an old trick I want to show you how to remove your grips with compressed air. Now that the banjo is on there, I'm not going to fully tighten it because it's not the final position of the master cylinder. I'm going to leave it as it is until we do all the angles and everything we want to do. I'm just slowly transferring everything over. So next thing is to remove our throttle off the bike, the throttle tube. All you do is you take these Phillips screws off, and don't forget there's a pin for the stock throttle. Switching this for the TWM one. One of the main reasons are, I don't know if you hear this, this kind of annoys me to have that noise. TWM does make a little bit of noise too, but this one is a little louder than what I would expect, but also it looks a little nicer. This is the brake light switch. So this is a Brembo RCS. I think it's supposed to be some sort of an upgrade over the stock stuff, because I believe some of the SPs came with this, and I'm not sure if the V4R came with this, but unfortunately I do not like the feel with this master cylinder. We've bled the bike many times and it just feels a little off. It could be that the master is bad from the factory. It's not the first time I would see such thing, but we're switching over to the 17 RCS Corsa Corta, and 17 RCS, we've said this before, because it matches the piston sizes of the calipers. If you put a 19, it's not the wrong thing to do. You're not going to damage anything, but in terms of feel and how we like things, the 17 RCS works perfectly with the style of calipers, and also that's the Brembo recommended master cylinder size. So guys, on the right hand side, we have two options for our buttons, and we have this Ducati bike button pod that has all the options such as the Ducati Performance Launch, start, on and off. It doesn't have the heated grips provision. These bikes don't come with heated grips. They're on there if you want to buy it as an accessory. If you want to keep the stock throttle setup on there, you could always run this unit by Ducati bike, and this has your pit speed limiter and your Ducati Performance Launch, your start stop switch, and well, this is the kill switch, not start stop, and this is the ignition button. But I think for this case, we're going to run our proprietary no slop throttle kit, which includes this CNC machined throttle tube that we have custom made so that we don't have to run any kind of spacers on the throttle. This actually takes care of all the spacing. But I think for our purposes, we're going to be running this. Let me get this all on the bike, and then you guys can see the process. The throttle is off the bike. I took these black Phillips bolts off. This will take this cover in the front off, but what we want to do is that we want to get the complete throttle assembly off. So that's your stock throttle tube. This is where you usually would install your Panigale spacers, but we're not going that route with this one. And to take these bolts off, these are, I'm going to call them tri-tips. They're not Phillips, and so you have to have this special triangular screwdriver for it, or the screwdriver bit, and it's a number 3. Now that you got your special triangle screws off, just snip this cable off. This is going to free up that cover. Don't throw this away, we're going to reuse this. And this will just remove this back cover. And this is plastic, this is pretty flimsy. Ducati makes also a cover without the buttons on it in case you want to use the other button. You might have seen it on our Street Fighter V4. So this is your TPS. And you don't want to damage this obviously because you don't want the bike to start revving by itself, or if anything, you might get stuck on the road because it might just shut it off. And then I'll show you this while we have everything apart. And as you see, when you put this in place, this new throttle tube that we make, there is no play whatsoever and it just works. And then if you put the stock one on, you'll see why. You see there is this play, and that's what you get on all these throttles. Some say it's intentional, but I could really not see that being intentional because now there's a lot of other bikes that come with the electronic throttles like the Yamahas and some other Japanese bikes as well, and none of them have that play. But this is going to solve our problem. But let's put this back together into the new throttle housing. So in this case, we're going to run 2 sets of wires through it. We're going to run the throttle wires and the switchgear buttons wires through it, and you want to make it as neat and tidy so that nothing is binding or in the way. Throttle tube in place. Just trying to make sure I'm not pinching any of the wires or anything like that. There we go, I think this is it. You just want to make sure your throttle is working right. Click, make sure it's secure. Now that I have everything figured out and I know that I'm going to be doing my brake light switch afterwards, I want to jump onto the clutch side. The clutch side is a little quicker, it's still a hydraulic clutch, but let me get everything off, put our new master cylinder on that side. I'm going to show you something with the clutch switch. Again, it's a big question that's been asked, but let me get to it. Let's do it, and then maybe we'll put our upper triple on and start doing all the adjustments and see how it looks. Right now I'm just setting my clutch master. Just want to do all the banjo bolts and everything like that before I move on to the next step. And let me show you this. This is our right hand side switch. And since this is a street bike, it has all of our street functions, our turn signals, horn, headlight, well, I guess the high beam, and then your mode button is here. Also in the back, it's the flash to pass for the back. And your switch function, I'll show you this. We also have a video of how this exactly works on a Street Fighter V4. It's the same exact switches that are on the Panigale V4s and the Street Fighter V4, so you can see the full function of these switches. Just like the brake side, I'm using the Pro-Tie titanium banjo bolts for this clutch side. I think before I go further with plumbing anything, I might want to set the upper triple back on the bike, and then we could figure out our reservoir situation. Everything is on and everything is fitting perfectly. As you can see, the upper triple is perfectly in place on top of the steering stem nut. And the measurement that I took earlier is going to be probably negative this piece that we put on there. That measurement doesn't have to be exact, because don't forget, we take those measurements when we undo the lower triples to measure the right height of the bike. This upper triple is here just to give support for your fork and all the components that are attached to it. As long as it's fitting correctly on your steering stem nut, that's what you want to look at. And if you peek over from the bottom right here, it's sitting perfectly flat on top of our steering stem nut. Right here, this is the bottom of the upper triple, the race of it. But now I'm going to start torquing the steering stem nut down, and then we'll figure out our angles and everything and our reservoirs. We're getting there, guys. Fairing back on just to see in terms of interference with our hand controls, if we have any. I don't think we're going to have an issue. What I quickly did there, guys, was to try to get on the bike and set my, let's say, benchmark riding position that I feel like I'm going to be comfortable with. Let me show you guys this tool. I love this thing. This is by far one of the best things I've ever used to try to set the handlebar positions equally on each side. And there's a knob that you see that I'm screwing right now. This tightens everything down, and then you can grab it, flip it upside down. That angle hasn't changed. You see this is the same angle. You'll bring it onto this side. And as you see, this is now an exact copy of the angle of the other side. Guys, now it's time to get the plumbing of the bike done. When I mean by plumbing, it's the brake reservoirs. And I'm holding this Ducati by Rizoma reservoir. These used to be called the wave reservoirs by Rizoma, but now they have an agreement with Ducati that you could only get them through Ducati. You no longer can get the shape without going through Ducati. Either way, this is the clutch reservoir. It's the small one. It usually goes only on the clutch side. For the purpose of this build, I really like the symmetry of stuff. I'm going to be using it on the brake side. And you're wondering, hey, how come the brake one is bigger and the clutch one is smaller? So there are certain factors of using the larger ones on the brake side, and some of them are because if you wear through your pads, you know, you have more brake fluid so that it's not hitting the minimum level. I don't think that's an issue. Even on track, I don't think you're going to go through that much pad wear in one session or even in a day that you're going to be needing brake fluid in there. And also, the counter argument, it's because this is a debated topic, is that if you have a smaller reservoir, there's less fluid in there, meaning that there's less water absorption, because the brake fluid does attract humidity/water, which degrades the fluid. So in this case, if you're wondering why we're putting two small ones and is it okay? Yes, it is definitely okay. It's just you have to be a little more diligent with keeping an eye out on your max and min levels. And other than that, there should be no harm done by using a smaller reservoir. I promise you guys, we're converting this bike to carbon. I'm only putting these things back on just to check the clearances. What I'm checking is when I go full right to see if there's anything interfering with the bodywork, especially the gas control that's on this bike. And then you want to go full left and make sure that your brake lever or anything of the master cylinder is not hitting your front fairing. We're clear. And also same thing on the left side of the bike. Again, the switch panel gets pretty close, but I think we're good. So guys, this is where I want the reservoirs, I think, ideally. And it's pretty close, especially because you're kind of dictated by the length of this. You can't make this longer. You could kind of make it shorter by the bends. And what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to take the chance, bend it the way that I think it's going to be mounted. we got plenty of clearance on this side. Thankfully, we kind of cheated and looked on this side to see how it's going to fit. Kind of want to level them a little bit if I can, just like this. As you saw, I was able to bend that bracket just by what I did there, and I want to try the same on this side. Yeah, so they're kind of, what you want to do is you want to make sure that these reservoirs are level. It's keeping the view to the dash completely open. Otherwise, I think if you take a look at your own bike with the stock stuff on it, it kind of gets in the way of the dash, and now it's completely open. And you could paint these. So if you're running with a black theme, you could probably paint them black. We've done it before. The V4X had it on there. I'm sure no one even noticed it. But with this bike, with everything being anodized silver, it actually goes with the theme, so it doesn't stick out as much. As you can tell, the bike's back on the lift. We pulled it back, put it back up, and have it all standing straight because we're done with turning the steering and checking our clearances. Next thing I want to check is to make sure these buttons are working properly, these switch panels. I'm checking my turn signals, 4-ways, that's all working. The headlight buttons are working, horn is working, and then there is a little switch button here, so it goes through the menu functions. And if you come right over here, the right side of the menu is also functioning, which is good. Okay, now we want to check the right-hand side. This is the kill switch. It turns the bike over. I'm not going to start it indoors. And the Ducati Performance Launch button is working as well. It says it's not available because the bike's not been turned on, obviously, but that's all good. But other than that, I think the bike is looking beautiful. I just love seeing all this. We basically switched everything over on the handlebar. Everything's been changed except our beautiful upper triple tree. And let me show you guys quickly what's coming up next. This piece will replace a complete magnesium piece in the front. And trust me, it does say weight, and we are going to weigh it and show it to you on the video. But for now, I think we're done for this episode. I'm going to be off camera bleeding our brakes and clutch system and then putting our stall bus bleeder valves. And on the next video, we're going to get to the carbon part of this bike. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, have a good one.